Awesome. We'll go ahead and get started. It's 4 o'clock.
Thanks. I'm so excited to be here. So before I really get into it and share slides and get dense into stuff, are any of you Harry Potter fans, at least familiar with the stories? If you're not, a quick summary of, so that in the third year, Harry Potter's on the train, and Dementors come on looking for somebody. Okay, I promise this is going somewhere. I'm not just going to ramble and tell you the story of Harry Potter. So Dementors are on the train. They're looking for this prisoner who escaped from this high security prison. And nobody likes the Dementors. They suck all the joy out of everything. But everybody is more okay than Harry. Harry faints. We find out later it's because he didn't have as many good memories as the other people to feed on. He was full of all these bad experiences in his past, these traumas. His parents died when he was young. He was raised by people who weren't really securely attached to him. Then he went through this big transition. Anyways, so the Dementors fed on him more than the other people. So I'm going to be talking about emotional regulation today. So Harry had a hard time regulating this strong emotion from the Dementors, unlike the other people that he worked with. So let me share my screen and we're going to get started. I'm going to bring up that story a few times. The analogies kind of falls apart here and there, but that's okay. This time, Matthew's not with me, but he wasn't really planning on saying much anyway. I think he's going to join later and get some feedback. So the last third, it's going to be more, I shouldn't talk and share at the same time. Okay, sorry about that. So today we're talking about a place to meet needs, just like we were last time, but this time focusing on a place for emotional regulation. We're not really focusing on emotional regulation exactly, but how to provide a space that encourages emotional regulation. We will have to talk about theories around emotional regulation so we can get there, but the focus is to provide us a place for it. So we're going to first talk about, sorry, I got trigger happy. We're going to first talk about emotional regulation, and then we're going to talk about cognitive load. If these words don't make sense right now, they will when we get there. Then we're going to talk about stressors and affordances. And then we're going to touch on just briefly about support and autonomy. And finally, a third of the time, hopefully, we'll be focusing on assessing our space. We'll look at all the pictures. I want this to be interactive. There's not very many of us on the call that we can go through this checklist to assess the space for how well it supports emotional regulation. So why does this matter? As an educator, you are more interested in behavior, right? Helping others apply themselves in a productive way that contributes to the world. You want to share knowledge with them, but not just the knowledge. You want them to be able to apply that knowledge into a behavior. Emotions are mental reactions that assist in driving behavior. I'm having difficulty turning. Okay, now it's moving. So emotions are mental reactions that assist in driving behaviors. So last time we talked about motivations and needs, and another driver of behaviors. And just as a quick recap here, if you're here, I think I keep saying last week, 2 weeks ago, we talked about our behavior as motivated by needs. We each focus on different needs. And those needs include basic comfort, security, belonging, esteem, contribution, and self-actualization. There, we talked about the hierarchy of needs. But then we focus more on how the physical and the social environments can be organized to assist in meeting these needs. Because we are a product of our environment, of both our social and our physical environments. And those can be used as a tool to help in all of our other goals. Okay, now emotional regulation, that's kind of a quick summary. What is it? It's experiencing emotions in a socially acceptable way. It's socially acceptable to be angry. All of us get angry, all of us get sad, we all have emotions, but it's not socially acceptable to hit somebody when we're angry. So how do we regulate those emotions in a socially acceptable way? This could be conscious or non-conscious control of emotion. Generally, we focus more on the conscious. And there's kind of two ways things could be non-conscious, right? You can either make it conscious long enough that it becomes automated and then it becomes non-conscious, or it can be something that is more natural to you that maybe is just the product of, or your reaction to it is just how it happens, because somebody else organized it like that, or the past organized it like that. So that's more what we're going to be talking about. As you as educators, how can you encourage this non-conscious control of emotion? As a separate topic, I'm assuming you know all these different conscious ways that people can practice these: deep breathing, physical activity, journaling, social support, all these different ways that they can practice conscious ways. Well, a place encourages more of this non-conscious way. So the term emotional regulation comes from attachment theory. I'm sure it originated before that, but that's where it really became popularized, where people started studying more. If you're not familiar with attachment theory, it talks about how secure attachments lead to better emotional regulation. Well, let me go there real quick. I got things out of order. Okay, attachment theory. So it's a framework to explain a person's early attachments. So there's four main attachment styles, right? So secure attachment is the one we want. That leads to better emotional regulation. So in this framework, so this is relevant because this is why it's important for all of us as educators to understand. We want our students to be, or we want to be motivated to learn and be socially acceptable. We want to be able to contribute to the world. And this requires regulating our emotions first. And then that requires having a secure attachment to empathetic adults to help us learn these things. This is part of educating the whole child. So the real life Harry Potter wouldn't likely, if he was a real person, he would likely, I'm stumbling over my words, would likely not regulate emotions very well because he didn't really have that secure attachment for that first 11 years of life. Let me go back real quick because I think skip things. So self-regulation is not, let me go back. Self-regulation is not behavior control. That's not what we're doing. To regulate emotions, that's a deeper internal thing. Behavior is what others observe. Kids can be taught to behave in a specific manner. That might be motivated by emotion, but more often it's motivated by an external reward system. Behavioral control is a band-aid level. Self-regulation is more complex and internal. Behavior plans rely on external sources, and self-regulation relies on inner strategies. So there are valid reasons for behavior plans, but teaching concepts around social and emotional learning and executive functioning, those aren't those times for behavior plans. Executive functioning is about inner strategies. So again, here my goal here today isn't to strengthen these inner strategies, it's to inform what type of place, what kind of social and physical place that you can create to deploy an emotional regulation strategy. So when do we use strategies for behavior or emotion or controlling the environment? So let's look at a couple quick theories. We already looked at attachment theory. I'm not going to spend too long on theories. I want to get into more examples, but I think this helps frame everything of why this is important and how the examples matter. So we talked about this. Sorry about my disorder there. So we're put into a situation. Harry was put onto the train where there's a Dementor. And then at school, the Dementors, if you're familiar with the story, for that year, Dementors were put all around the outside of the school. So these, if you're not familiar, these are kind of monster things that feed on, that they're attracted to bad memories and they feed on the good memories. So Harry is put in a situation. He can select that situation. Okay, there's Dementors near the gates. I can either roam around, I can do my Harry thing of roaming around and getting into trouble, or I can modify that and not do that. I can just stay in the castle and do what I'm supposed to. I can, if I'm a student in your room, I can either sit next to this person I constantly talk to, or I fight with, or I can be distracted by certain things. You could put two students next to each other that constantly get distracted with each other, or you can modify that to change it way, right? That's their situation, and that's what we want to focus on over here. But then part of this process model of emotional regulation, the next step after that, after we're in a situation, is attention. Where do we deploy our attention? This is when we start being aware of, oh, I'm sitting next to this person that I am constantly distracted by, or I'm sitting next to whatever else that stresses me out, this noise that always goes off, or this lighting that's too bright. I don't want to sit under this lighting. I'm aware of this, where my attention is going. Harry focused his attention on the strong emotion that he doesn't have control over, and he kept focusing on that bad memory that he was feeling. The next step after that, after we understand our attention, is we start to appraise that. We can go through a cognitive change. Harry can either continue focusing on that bad emotion, or later on in the book, he starts to think about good emotions. Okay, I can think about good memories for as long as I can, and I can stay more conscious longer until somebody else is able to help me. A student can focus on, or you can focus on, what makes you happy. Right now, I'm getting frustrated by all these things that I can't control right now, but I can change my what I'm focusing on, my attention. I can have that cognitive change to focus on something I am in control of right now. So this is when emotional regulation should happen, at this appraisal stage. But a lot of us don't have it happen at that appraisal stage. A lot of us wait until this response happens, where the emotions just come out in some kind of way. So this has a feedback loop. This response creates a new situation. And then we have this feedback loop where it keeps going until we're able to modify or select a different situation, or appraise our mental capacity a little different. So remember, emotional regulation can be conscious or non-conscious. This right side is more on the conscious level. So all the way to the right is, okay, I am definitely conscious of what my actions are doing based on my emotions. The snowball has rolled by that point. The farther right it goes, the harder it is to control. The snowball keeps rolling. So the farther left we can prevent these things, or be in control of where these emotions are going to take our behaviors, then the easier it is. Yeah, so the more conscious is on the right side. Now we're going to talk about cognitive load and what that means. We're all in a situation. There's sound, there's lighting, there's temperature, there's other people, there's hassle. We feel a certain level of security. These aren't good or bad. It's just a situation. But these situations become stressors when we lose control of them. So a sound becomes noise. The definition of a noise is just an unwanted sound. It's something I'm desiring a different kind of sound, and that's not what's happening right now. So I'm going to call this noise, and that now it's a stressor on me. Lighting becomes glare, temperature becomes hot or cold. Other people are crowding, after distraction, and security. Now I'm threatened in some way. There's all these stressors there's all these situations around us that can potentially turn into stressors as we lose control of them, as we lose control of our emotions, or how to handle it. There's a lot of different ways we can talk about how we're going to gain control again. I appreciate this meme. I feel like this signifies it. My cognitive load, my mental capacity is getting close. My brain is full of all these things that I don't like, and I'm just trying to stay still. I'm trying to do what I'm supposed to. But eventually I kind of lose control. And here's Zach Galifianakis got into a different role, a different show, where he is a clown. He's a rodeo clown, and he's just waiting his time until a bull gets him. Sometimes I feel like that. Sometimes I feel like I'm at a loss of control. All I'm doing is gripping on, waiting for a bull to hit me, because I know it's going to come. I'm just waiting. But that's not what we want. We don't want to wait for the bull to hit us. We don't want to wait for the Dementor to come and suck out all of our good memories, or whatever else. So to describe better cognitive load, we have a limited capacity for attention. So mental fatigue, a fatigue from stress or from maxing out my capacity for attention, it restricts coping strategies. So I might have I might be the best at having these coping strategies, but as soon as my mental capacity, this cognitive load is maxed, then I have a hard time actually implementing those. I start to lose control of my strategies. I lose control of my emotions. I feel like a clown jumping around waiting for the bull to hit me. So if efforts to regain this control of our capacity of our emotions, if this effort fails, then we learn helplessness. We talked about this last time about frustration regression. When we have a goal, we have this motivation that we're trying to attain this thing. And then we can't do it no matter how much we try. Our cognitive load is just at capacity. We're trying to earn belonging. We're trying to earn these different needs, but no matter what we do, we can't get it, and we just learn helplessness and regress back. That's not what we want. We want our students to continue feeling in control of their things. We want them to ask for help when they need it. We want them to be able to receive that help. We want them to keep working for it. We want ourselves to be like that. I don't want to learn helplessness. You don't want to feel helpless as a teacher. So how do we do this? So we're going to talk about control for just a second. How much control you feel in your life? Okay, so there's two different ways we can look at control. So we can believe that there's external forces or luck influencing my fate. We would call that external locus of control, where I'm just waiting here for a bull to hit me. It doesn't matter what I do, it's going to happen. It doesn't matter what I do, this kid is not going to graduate. This kid is not going to enjoy school no matter how much I try to engage him. Whatever the thing is, it's just luck. The other way to look at it is my fate is greatly influenced by my ability and my actions. So that's an internal locus of control. Maybe you don't have all the control in the world, but you have some control, and you are able to focus on that control that you do have. So you are able to have coffee in the morning? That's more of an internal locus control, right? You have the ability to go get coffee if you wake up early enough. Maybe it's an external locus control. Maybe it's out of your control if you have time to drink it before it gets cold. Sometimes, what about students showing up on time in the morning? That's kind of outside of your control, right? If one student is always 10 minutes late, that's not you. That's probably not them. It's more their parents. That's outside of your control, right? But there is little things you can do to try to gain control of things that are mostly out of your control. You can have the first 5 minutes of class is joke time. And I'm going to have a joke on the board and everybody can read it, or some kind of fun fact or something happens in the first 5 minutes. And after that 5 minutes, we're not allowed to talk about it. So if the kid misses that, they don't really miss out on anything, but they missed out on that belonging. Maybe they'd be more encouraged to get there early. They'd tell their parents, oh, I need to get there for joke time. I'm not going to keep fighting to put on my shoes or whatever it is. There's little things we can do to control the situation and remind ourselves that you do have an internal locus of control. Okay, so he in this picture doesn't look like it's an internal locus of control. He doesn't look like he's in control. So what are ways we can regain that? First, we can start by minimizing environmental stressors. All those things that fill up our cognitive load. We can do that by, so we can gain control over certain things. We can do that by giving control to our students to minimize their stressors. I know this is scary sometimes. We're going to talk about this more later. We can encourage, never, I'm repeating myself. So we don't want to just wait there with a painted face for a bull to hit me. We want to exercise our control, wipe the face paint off, let go of this role that Zach Galifianakis is playing in this show, and just become his more natural self. Just be the actor who gets amazing opportunities, like talking to the president back however many years ago. Okay, so stressors and affordances. So we talked about what stressors are. Now, affordances are these opportunities. Sorry, I should pause for a second. I should bring up, like, is there any questions or anything going on? All right, I didn't have that screen up at all. Matthew was coming into the room, so then I was distracted by that too. Okay, I don't see any notifications. I should probably have that on my screen just in case something happens. I'll just keep talking then. Matthew came on a great time where I'm losing tabs. Okay, I'm back on my right tab. So we have, we can have affordances. These are opportunities that, okay, I'll just keep going. We can select different situations or we can modify them, right? That was that first part of that theory we talked about. This can lead to a more favorable or a more favorable emotional response. So Harry, in this example of Harry Potter, he can stop wandering the grounds and stay away from the Dementors. That's probably not his tendency. He's going to go towards those strong emotions probably because it's Harry Potter and it's a more exciting story. So what are the other options? So that's his control. Is he going to control that change? Probably not. There's other options to restore it. That means having a more capacity to have stronger emotions, to have more enjoyable emotions, to focus on the enjoyable parts rather than focusing on the negative parts. So these are the two parts we're going to talk about for the rest of the time, is how do we either control it, control these stressors, or how to restore our mental capacity to be able to allow for more stressors. And I think of this as kind of a balance. It's not a perfect one-to-one scale, but I like to give everything a grade. So I have 3 points against me because of I'm hot and I'm angry, and this student is late again today. But I have 5 points for me because I have control over these other things. So it's kind of a scale of, am I able to regulate my emotions? Am I able to be in a clear state where I can do according to what I want to do rather than be led by my emotions? And it's down to this scale. Do I have more affordances right now, or do I have more stressors right now? So we talked about this earlier, this theory. So we're going to apply, so controlling the response is like modifying the situation, right? Or increasing emotional capacity to modify how our attention is appraised in this area. So Harry Potter, he learned how to direct his attention to happy memories to withstand the Dementors longer and not let the bad memories consume him. He also learns the Patronus charm, this strategic response, but it was hard. That was to restore his capacity to have more. So if you're not familiar, he makes this big spell and it puts a shield of happiness around him pretty much. And then Dementors just feed on that rather than feeding on him. And this is a strategic response that took a lot of practice because the snowball was rolling. This is farther right on this chart at the bottom. This was a response, and those emotions are hard to deal with by the time it gets all the way to the right on the response. So before you have to do this magical big thing to restore your capacity, it's easier to focus more on that left side where we can just move the situation. Okay, so instead of talking about all those different things, I'm just going to summarize the stressors as just noise. These are just noise things I don't like. All right, so we can control a lot of parts in our room, our offices, or schools, whatever. So we'll go through some quick, easy examples. So sound. We all have different things that stress us out more. I'm really sensitive to sounds. I get really annoyed when there's noises that I can't control going around me, when there's music that I don't like or I can't control. Sometimes I put earbuds in that's playing the same sound, the same song that I just heard a little bit ago, but I'm happy with that because I'm in control of it. It wasn't this other music that was going on. So what are the sounds we could do in our rooms to maybe be in control of? The students could be in control of that somehow. Another example is lighting frustrates a lot of people when there's a glare. That's one of those subconscious things we don't normally think about, but lighting plays a huge impact, you probably know, on how students are able to focus. So those are little things we can control proactively in our classroom. So I have two roles here, right? I'm an environmental psychologist and I'm an architectural designer. So as my architectural designer side, I don't suggest this. We should have a good architectural solution. But as my psychologist side, I support you doing everything you can to control your environment, especially when it's something that is going to minimize the stressor. One more example is it probably stresses you out when you're trying to have a lesson or you have a goal and then your student all of a sudden needs to sharpen their pencil or do something else that's not important for the time. So that seems like more of an external locus of control thing, right? Something that you don't have control of. It's, well, they need to sharpen their pencil. They need to go to the bathroom, whatever it is. But again, what kind of things can I do to proactively control that? At the beginning of the day, I can tell all the students, okay, hold up, sharpen pencils. And that's the time they should have to resharpen pencils. And if they don't have it then they need to sharpen right then. So then you can control more when they should sharpen their pencils. At times periodically, this is when you go to the bathroom. I'm sure you know all these things, but these are just examples of how we can exercise this control to minimize these stressors. So it's a good activity to think about what stresses me out most. How can I proactively do that? It seems so obvious, but sometimes we need reminding. All right, so this is a way for students to have more control, right? We've been talking about you having control. What about students? What about allowing them and encouraging them to have more control of their space, helping them to regulate their emotions because they're in control of the sound, they're in control of whatever else. This might be overwhelming for some of you. But we can give them options for how they sit, the textures they touch, how they bounce their feet. This gives a lot of opportunities for them to feel in control of their space. So they're not as easily distracted by the person around them, because it reminds them that I do have this internal locus of control. If I'm bothered by this other thing, I can move because I was already told I can move to whatever seat I want. I have more control because I'm, as a student, putting my things on the walls. This is still a pretty organized way that the teacher is controlling it. So we can find our right balance between the teacher control and the student control, but we could also go free for all and the students can post whatever they want all over the walls. Whatever this balance is, that's most beneficial for the teacher and the students to both have this right amount of control. And I won't focus on that. So there's a study about how people felt in control of their environment and how it led to their job satisfaction. And I won't describe the study in detail here, but more personal control over the workspace led to higher group cohesiveness and job satisfaction. That's what we want for our students, right? More group cohesiveness, more job satisfaction. So this is a very clear way. If any of you are interested in more details about this, this is my big research project for a couple of years ago, was all about giving more autonomy to students and what that means for them. So I'm excited to talk about that more if anybody is interested. So continuing with affordances, we already talked about this. Just to remember that how much control you feel like you have in your life, this external versus internal. And this is a balance between the teacher and the student. We want the student to feel like they have the ability to change their actions, and the teachers. All right, so we can control these things, but remember we talked about cognitive load earlier. So I can control posters all over the walls, but we have a limited capacity for attention. So this might not be what I want to do. These posters are probably all great information, but it's filling my cognitive load. There's a study about how much wall space should be available on the classrooms to help kids focus the most, and it was about 40 to 60% of your wall space should be open. So roughly half. This is not roughly half. If it's like this, then I'm focusing on all these other things. All these little letters, numbers, symbols, pictures, they all mean something, and I'm feeling guilty that I don't understand what that means right now. It's right in front of my face, especially on the teaching wall. This is the focus wall where the teacher is supposed to be up there talking likely, or some other thing is going on that's taking their attention. But instead, I'm also looking at all these other loud things all the way around them. That's definitely a stressor in a lot of situations. It's more often a stressor than those posters are in affordance. This might be great for the educator. They put this there, they feel in control, they're happy about all their posters that they work so hard to get, but it might not be great for the students. Maybe this is okay. You know your students, you know yourself, or at least we want to try to be able to do that. So maybe this is okay, but not all at once. So part of what we're doing here is part of cognitive load is a slow getting used to it. Harry at first couldn't be by a dementor. That was overwhelming. He fainted pretty quickly in that first time, but throughout the book, throughout the movie, he was able to get more used to it because of these strategies he built up, because he got used to the difficulty of it. So maybe they want all these posters, but for the first month, don't have them. My daughter's class actually has a more flexible classroom, and I was really excited to talk to the teacher about it because that's my big passion to understand it better. And she starts the year with a pretty blank classroom with just enough desks and stuff for those students, and they're more similar desks. But then a month later, then she adds another station. She adds more posters on the wall of things that they already previously talked about. Why am I putting posters on the wall of something I haven't talked about yet? That's just overwhelming for the students. That diminishes their competence. Okay, so that's control. I kind of ran on a little tangent there, but all beneficial stuff. This teacher, this is the 7th grade room. We looked at this picture once before. The teacher said, I was anxious. I'd always had strong classroom management. Would this change cause chaos in my otherwise structured world? She talked about before that she did this, how much research she did. This is better for most of the students, so I'm going to do it. But I don't know if I'm going to be able to handle it. So it's kind of a trial and error. Sorry, is it just a trial and error? So there's a study about it. This group from Iowa State University controlled 2 different classrooms. They measured how well the students did. Most of the students liked it. That's pretty unanimous. Not all students like it better, but most students like it better, both through all grade levels, young students and college level. But I'm curious about the teachers. How do you handle it? So flexibility and student-led learning increases student achievement, right? But some teachers find it beneficial, and some teachers find it disorienting and distracting. It's pretty split, half and half. Are you a teacher that's going to find it disorienting and distracting, or are you going to find it beneficial? You don't really want to take a whole year out of a trial to do this. One of the things I looked at was how this applies to the self-determination theory. All right, I leaned on the button too long. So we talked about this last week about these underlying needs that we seek to accomplish. This finding my sense of belonging, my sense of competence and autonomy. So I won't focus on this again. But these are things that help us to also regulate our emotions. If all these are in balance, preferably I have met all these needs, but if not, at least they're in balance. If I have a lot of belonging, but I have no competence, and I don't feel like I'm contributing back to that belonging, and that diminishes my belonging. So they all need to be in a balance somehow. So applying this to these flexible classrooms, I surveyed people all across the US and how teachers felt their classroom was beneficial. So what we found was that belonging and competence, we kind of summarize this as structured support. If I feel like I belong to my group, if I as an educator feel like I belong with my coworkers, with the community, with the leadership, and I feel competent in teaching, then it's going to be great. Then I can give the students all this autonomy, but they have to be balanced. The more belonging and competence I feel as a teacher, then the more autonomy I can give to my students. So next time we talk in 2 weeks, we're going to focus a lot more on what these assessments are, how to assess you, how to assess your students, so we can find the right mixture of flexibility and then all these other examples that we're talking about that fit for you. But overall, so teachers who are more flexible with their classroom had higher self-efficacy, which is how confident you feel in your abilities to accomplish something. So they had higher self-efficacy and higher job satisfaction. The commonalities among teachers who did not find benefit from such flexibility, they all felt inadequately supported by their leadership or their other teachers. They had lower self-efficacy to begin with, this trait of it, and which is something that we can practice and develop further. And their more students need financial aid, which means their students likely wanted more structured support, and the students felt a lack of competence to be able to use their autonomy correctly. Right. focus on that any longer. But I'm excited to talk about this a little bit more in detail. Last time I just kind of threw it in here because that was one of the questions at the end of last time was we were talking more about autonomy and what is it good or bad. So we can assess ourselves for those areas. Moving on from this, I'm gonna skip that for time. I ran too much. Okay, so we talked about controlling. Now we're talking about restoring. So restoring is the process of recovery from stress or fatigue. We can have a restorative environment, which is an environment that promotes restoration. And a lot of the people that I was at in my graduate program with my professors, that's what they focus on. How can we have a restorative environment? This was one of my professors, Melissa. One of her big studies 5 or 8 years ago was she took a bunch of graduate students all over Germany and measured the amount of trees in neighborhoods. And they found that people living near more trees were prescribed less antidepressants. And this effect increased for people with lower socioeconomic status. So it was more important. So Harry Potter, he had this traumatic childhood, right? And the Dementors were a bigger influence on him. For the people who feel less in control of their situation, they're at a lower socioeconomic status, which has all these additional stresses. They were more influenced by this amount of trees or connection to nature around them. Another one of my professors was Eleanor Ratcliffe, and her big focus for I think 10 years was about what sounds are most calming for people. And she found that bird sounds are the type of natural sound most commonly associated with perceived stress recovery and attention restoration. So because of her work, a lot of hospitals now, especially around Europe, they play bird sounds in waiting rooms. One of the most stressful places you can be in a hospital waiting room, and then there's just light bird sounds playing. So, and it helps calm people a little bit. From Melissa's work about nature connection, now it's prescribed in England specifically, but also some hospitals in the US will prescribe nature walks where people gather in groups on Wednesday morning at 10. You're going to gather with all these other people that have different reasons that they need healthcare, and you're going to go on a walk together, have this sense of belonging and connection with nature in addition to any other normal healthcare procedure. That they found that significantly helps people in their recovery time. So what does this mean for students? So we're playing sounds. Maybe we can play some bird sounds. We have these, I see these light covers all the time. Let's have nature themed light covers. We can have nature posters all around. We don't have to have that physical connection with nature to still feel a connection with nature. All these things, I call it non-threatening texture. When I see leaves, when I hear birds, it's things that are going around me, but because it's natural, I don't feel threatened by it. If it was a song, I feel threatened that I have to understand the lyrics to that song. It's this increasing my mental load that these nature things don't increase your nature load, but it's still an engagement in the classroom. So some quick applications for this. I'm going to zoom these because we're going to look at these examples again. Okay, well, real quick, plants. Having plants in our classroom is a great connection to nature, but you might not have windows. You might have a small office. I had one of these spiderwort plants in my bathroom for about a year. My bathroom doesn't have any windows, but these are low maintenance office plants that don't need very much light. This plant continues to grow in my bathroom just because of the light above my sink. So you can have grow light bulbs if you really need to. Some plants like grow light bulbs, these are inexpensive bulbs, and a thrift store lamp. To put your grow light bulb, you have this accent lamp, you have a grow light bulb, you get the plants. It's a nice restorative space because you're connected to nature, according to research. And if you're worried, grow light bulb, I looked up, they're classified in the lowest risk group. They don't have any additional risk than normal lights, these full spectrum grow light bulbs. Okay, as a quick summary for this nature part, take control of your stressors affordances. Enjoy a Saturday morning stroll through Mulholz or wherever is your closest plant store, looking for low light, low maintenance office plants. Find a unique, inexpensive thrift store lamp, a grow light bulb. This is a fairly inexpensive way to have a more restorative space. that's calming and helping students to feel more emotionally regulated. Sometimes we might need to be proactive about it, to set our Outlook calendar to watering plants. On Friday mornings, the Outlook calendar reminds me to water plants, because that's my failure. I need need a reminder for that. Or have small fake ones. So experience increases your confidence. That's not something I really covered. But this practice of controlling your environment, these are small ways that you took control of your environment. You got the plant, you got the watering schedule, you got whatever, and then that increases your confidence, which strengthens your ability to give more control over to the students, so they can practice their control. So they can practice their control to be more self-regulated and have ownership over their stressors. And experience increased environmental affordance. Okay, so I was going to play this video, but it doesn't really work when I'm going through PowerPoint into Zoom. But this, I've talked to a lot of teachers who do something similar when they come in from recess, and there's real evidence about this. There's a study about the effect of, so they compared all these different situations of going outside on a nature walk, watching a nature video, going out for recess, the combination of these different ones, and they found the most beneficial thing was to watch a 4-minute nature video after some kind of physical movements, after recess, and that improved emotional regulation and sustained attention. The teachers that I've talked to, some of them do like meditation apps or meditation videos when they, as the students were coming in from recess. That's normally a chaotic time anyways, that you're having to, I know a lot of you are probably more on the counseling side than the teaching side. But these are things you could suggest to the teachers that you work with also. That's normally a time when students are crazy and they're yelling about something, and oh, I have to tell the teacher that you did this during recess, and teachers are normally putting out these little fires. So while they're putting out a fire with these 3 students, the rest of the students are watching a nature video every day after recess. And that encourages emotional regulation and sustained attention. All right, so there's features that restore us from stress. There's this visual complexity, green-blue space, aesthetic. We have a focus and depth to whatever we see, and there's optional paths. This is normally applied to outdoor spaces, to parks, but we can also apply this in it's a safe place. We can also apply this into indoor places where this is all man-made, right? But it's very natural looking. For some reason, there's a river on the ceiling, but it's calming and nice. Circles are always calming more than angles. Quick tangent, people always feel more comfortable in more squared rooms because I know where the exit was. I don't get disoriented, but I'm definitely more calmed. It's proven that people are more calmed by curved shapes. So if you're in a square room but with lots of circles all over the room, that's more of a calming feature. Colors leaning towards natural colors such as blue and green. We're going to look at some examples like this. So this is maybe more applying it into a room like you may have. They don't have things plastered all over the walls. There's a good window. There's gentle flowers hanging from the ceiling. They have bold, solid colors on the ground rather than all these little tiny triangles that distract me. It's a more calming classroom that I've been in. That's compared to this, where a lot of these shapes are small and words all over the place. Things are plastered over the walls. I know I focus on a not very tasteful part of the classroom. Other walls looked better than this, but that's a wall that people look towards. That red chair in the back, that's where the teacher sits during story time, and that's when I'm supposed to be focusing on the teacher, but I'm focusing on these things that are right around me. Okay, now for the exciting part. Oh, I just saw there's been somebody in the waiting room. How long have they been there? Hi, Trudy. I just saw you in the waiting room. I hope you weren't waiting for very long. So we just finished talking about emotional regulation, cognitive load, stressors, and balancing the support and autonomy. Now we're going to apply this into assessing our space. I have to click back on that tab. Now that I'm the person. So assessing the space. So we found 4 categories based on all these different research that are best to look at that help us understand emotionally regulating space. So first is naturalness, light, sound, connection to nature, temperature and air quality. Some of these you have control of them, some of them you don't. Ownership, individualization. So how much I can customize my space. Do I make my own name tag as a student for my desk, or does the teacher make it for me? How much individualization do I have over my territory space or the whole classroom? Territoriality, expectations, that's a huge part of ownership. So part of regulating our emotions is we become dysregulated. I'm sure you know, but we're gonna outline it right now. We become dysregulated when our expectations don't match reality. When I want one thing, but a different thing is happening, that seems obvious, right? So an easy way to do that is always have clear expectations. That can be a social thing, or it can be a physical thing. Labeling things, making it clear where you can go, where you can't go, where you get this item, where you get that item, having clear expectations of everything. Flexibility is a good part of ownership. Can I sit however I want? And connection. Do I get to connect how I want? The third part of this is stimulation. Where's my focus at? Where am I going to deploy my attention? Then the complexity. Is it too complex? Is it not enough? Is it mind numbing because there's nothing on the walls and I'm just in a white box? Or is it full of plastered, shiny, sharp angles of bright colors that are distracting me? How complex is it? And then color and shapes. I'm not going to talk about it during this series, but I did a research project about color, and I really enjoyed that if anybody's curious about what kind of colors are most calming for certain personality types in certain situations. Support. Expectations, we already talked about that, but it's also part of feeling supported rather than just me owning things. Feeling like everything is accessible to me, especially in the younger classes. I'm told to go get a pencil, but I have to reach over the counter that my arms are barely long enough to reach. Do I feel secure? Do I feel competent in my area? And do I feel in control? Okay, so this is exciting. You can do this for your classroom. Let's look at some examples. And you are welcome to unmute yourself. And I'm going to share a couple of my thoughts. You don't have to say anything. We can have an awkward pause for 10 seconds. If nobody says anything, that's fine. I'm going to share some of my thoughts. And then if anybody else wants to have any questions or thoughts on this classroom, and we're going to do this for, I think, 5-ish classrooms and then 2 or 3 office spaces, and applying these principles to that. I know we're getting a little close on time. Okay, so the first part is, what do we have control over? What do we not? You don't have the capacity to change the flooring in this room. You probably don't have you can't control the windows really. You can put blinds up, but it depends on what's outside. Is that a nice, I can't see with this picture, but is that a nice green park outside? Is that all these connections to nature? In which case, maybe I'm more in favor of this more bland room because it focuses me out on this nature right outside the window. But if it's a brick wall, I would want to add more things to the room. Everything is in balance here. So the students don't really have much ownership. There's a lot of expectations. That's a bonus, right? A lot of expectations that when I get here, okay, the teacher's going to stand up here. I sit here. I face forward this way. I'm not supposed to talk to the people next to me. There's clear expectations. Last week, I more talked about the individual differences between people. Some students benefit from that. Some students need more structured support. Some students want more autonomy. So what fits your classroom, and we can rate it according to itself, and then how it fits your classroom. Does anybody else have any other thoughts, questions about this, or should I keep going on? I'll wait 3 seconds. Okay, that makes sense. This is a boring one. So let's move on. There's a little bit more interest in the desks. There's optional paths was one of the areas of stimulation that I didn't write it down. There's a little bit more complexity in how the seating is. There's a little bit more freedom and seeing the other students in the class. There's a lot of things on the wall, and they're all pretty bland versus color, but it's not overwhelming. It's still probably around close to half the space. I wish the windows were open, but maybe there's a brick wall right outside, or maybe it's just glaring during that time of day. But if they're closed, maybe we can put some kind of natural curtains over it. Like a fun color, not little tiny triangles that these angles and sharp things bright colors that are too small, but nice, solid, big, bold colors. I'm gonna move on. I already looked at this one. I thought I deleted that again. What's happening? Okay, we looked at this one already. So stimulation, feel free to just jump in if you have anything. I'm gonna pause for a second while we stare at this. Make sure I should have my, I realize I can minimize the screen and I can have, see if there's any comments going on. Okay, so focus, that's a part of stimulation. There's not really any focus here. As far as I can tell, all the walls are the same. Maybe that's perfect. Maybe this is more of an advanced class that all the kids, they're in a richer neighborhood, that they have a lot of opportunities and affordances. They can handle this greater autonomy, but normally you still need some kind of focus on the wall, some kind of accent somewhere. They did a good job where they have these soft pillows and rugs around to soften up this echoey tiled floor. They don't have things all over the walls. They have some plans. So there's a lot of great things about this classroom. But that's just based on not knowing anything about the students. I'm assuming the students can handle this, the teacher can handle this. Everything is independent or is reliant on that. So this, I like how there's, the colors are blue, which is nice to match the floor. Blue and greens are the good colors, right? Those are the most calming colors. They have some tables that all the students work together, some that are more separate. On the right, where it's underneath the words, there's a pod of 2 desks, so students can feel like, oh, I'm more of an extrovert, I like to sit with 7 students. I'm more of an introvert, I like to sit with just one other or by myself. There's a good amount of flexibility here. Looking at, so this one, so this teacher won a big grant and all these furniture things came all at once. So we talked about expectations before, about easing into things. If you want to plaster the walls with all this beneficial stuff, that might be helpful to students, that's great, but we have to ease into it. This teacher didn't ease into it. She didn't know her own capacity, how the students worked. She just put it there because she won the grant. And then after a year, she was overwhelmed and she gave half the furniture to other people in the school. And then she went back to a more traditional classroom. I think the teacher could have done great at this if they properly prepared for it, if they understood what was coming, if they knew why it failed, and don't just throw the baby out with the bathwater. Now, there's 2 things of skills that she can have, that she can practice. We can talk more about those in 2 weeks. But as a picture in itself, I feel like there's a lot of great things. There's not little tiny shapes all over. There's just a couple areas, but most of it is more open. There's this accent lamp. She's in control of the lighting. That's always beneficial. There's options for the students. There's pod C, pod D. There's clear expectations for everything. The teacher and the students have clear expectations of where things are, what I'm supposed to be doing. All the little bins on the side have labels on them. These are things that increase her mental load, right? But they're also things that increase my expectations. That's helpful. Does anybody have any thoughts or questions on any of these classrooms so far? No? All right. This one, I like the colored wall. It's a good focus for the room. Nice, one big solid color. They have blues over the window, a nice natural color. And also the circle. Normally, I often see things hanging from the ceilings, but I appreciate the circles because that's a more calming shape. It's funny how much it really matters. I didn't have any numbers or anything prepared for today, but that made a significant increase for a lot of students. This one, a lot of space to move around. Not a lot of things on the walls. The echoey floor is really annoying, but they don't really have much control over that, right? But maybe they can have rugs. Maybe they can put extra soft things around. Sound is one of the big things that students have a hard time focusing on. This is an example where the teacher just started doing it slowly herself. that I'm just going to find my own chair, but it was a slow thing over a number of years. Yeah, for this one, we're getting close to time, so I'll go to the office, which I think is more applicable to some of you. Okay, offices. So you have a small space, but zones are always important. I don't think I've talked about it directly yet, but zones are important to have. This is my expectation for right here. I'm going to have a formal meeting at the desk with you where there's a formal desk that separates me from you, and another zone for you. If you have an office, it's probably not this big, I understand it. But the next example would be better for that. But then I have another table with crayons. Crayons are great to engage me, but not overwhelm me. I have the soft things, the soft chairs that you sit on the floor. There's lots of options for the students to have. There's nice bold colors, but not all these little distracting things. There's a couple things on the wall, but not too much. I have some clear expectations of which parts of the room I have ownership of as a student and which parts I don't. This might be a little more relatable to some of your offices. It seems a little cramped, but I appreciate when a space is encouraged to be as flexible as the social. I didn't say that very well. The physical space should be as flexible as the social space. I'm expecting that when that teacher needs to talk to people more formally, to other teachers or whatever, they might push that round table aside and use the 2 chairs by the desk. You can push things around. You're in control of your environment. Again, there's clear expectations. Things are labeled. I know things on the shelf, the student could probably grab, things in the filing cabinet, I can't grab. Their expectations, natural elements, the wood texture thing going on. I really like that the posters on the wall, they're natural and they don't also say relax. If there's a nice, this is a pet peeve of me. If there's a nice big poster of a waterfall, why do I need to say relax on it? I'm already relaxing just looking at it. That's just more words I have to think about. Okay. Just in summary, we can either control or restore our professors. Sometimes we think if we give more control to the students that all their noise, that everything is going to go up, it's going to be more stressful. But I'm also giving them more motivation and allowing them to meet their own needs, which increases my affordances. Also adds other things because teacher satisfaction. The kids are more engaged, so the teacher's going to be more satisfied. That diminishes the stressors. So you control your stressors, connect with nature, create belonging, support competence, and exercise autonomy. These are the key points of having a space that encourages emotional regulation. Okay, I'm gonna skip over the summary because I think the last part did it well and I'm out of time. So thank you. If there's any questions, I love questions. I know we're out of time, so if anybody needs to log off, that's fine. But while you answer the questions, if you can please take the survey as part of the AWARE grant in the Department of Education. They asked me to make sure that people are taking this survey at the end. Okay, sorry, I know I talk a lot and I probably max out your cognitive load. Any questions, any thoughts? If not, I really appreciate you being here and giving me a chance to share what I'm passionate about. All right, have a great day. I hope any of what I've shared today is helpful for you.